Now, when you said, hey, why don't you do a dramatic reading of the tweet? I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I realized I recognized it, that it's from the Bible.
Yes.
That is Jesus. That A.J. Brown was quoting Jesus because he didn't get the ball enough. He was quoting Jesus of Nazareth because he wasn't getting the ball enough. So I'm going to read this, but I was going to do like an Olivier, but out of respect, to not be sacrilege, I'm going to try to read this as sacrilegious. I'm going to try to read this as Jesus, because that way it's not.
That's a lot less sacrilegious. That's a lot less. Doing it as Jesus is a lot less sacrilegious than as Steve Martin on SNL.
Right. So let me do my best impersonation here on this football podcast of Jesus as tweeted by A.J. Brown. If you are not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Do not make a scene. Shrug your shoulders and be on your way. It's like a little Sermon on the Mount there, right? Nothing sacrilegious. No. It was like I was at CCD or it was in Sister Gertrude's class there. That was
you were doing a reading from the pulpit. You were in the pulpit doing the reading. It was fun.
I was a lector. I would talk when I was a lector, I would talk like that if I was doing Jesus. Of course, lectors don't do Jesus, Catholic. Never mind. We're not getting into all of that. You were talking to people around the league. What are you hearing about the actual A.J. Brown biblical crisis?
Yeah, it seems like the tweet has sparked this media-driven trade speculation that you're starting to see A.J. Brown's name pop up on like those mid-season, trade boards that we see at your former employer that they seem to write every week, or journalists will put out there like, oh, maybe A.J. Brown is an option. So I talked to two different sources in two different buildings around the league, and no one has heard anything even hinting that Howie Roseman and the Eagles would consider trading A.J. Brown right now. The consensus seems to be that this is, quote, wide receiver wants more targets antics, unquote. That seems to be what A.J. Brown is trying to do here. But I did find it interesting that just before we got on the podcast, an agent who represents a couple of receivers, not A.J. Brown, but is familiar with that market, obviously, and is talking to teams about his clients. He told me, I just asked him, what are you hearing ahead of the deadline? What's popping for you? And he said, I'm not hearing much, but keep an eye on A.J. Brown in Philly, maybe. So I'm not sure what to make of this, but I just look at it. I know Howie Roseman. You know Howie Roseman. They built a team where the offense is at its best. It's at its peak efficiency when A.J. Brown is the focal point. We've seen that time and time again. We saw it the second half of that game that they won on the blocked field goal against the Rams. That doesn't happen without A.J. Brown's second half.